Weird Nature Facts, Part 31. This incredible photo captures the moment an orangutan reached out to help a conservationist who was stuck in a river. It was taken in Malaysia when the man was searching for dangerous snakes in the area to protect the local apes. This extremely rare translucent lobster was caught in the state of Maine. The man who caught it said he threw it back into the ocean because it was too small. Experts say the chances of finding a lobster like this are about 1 in 100 million. Thousands have climbed Mount Everest and 12 men have visited the moon, but only 3 people have ever been to the deepest point in the ocean. While meerkats are adorable, they're also the most murderous species on the planet by far. They've been known to kill members of their own species more frequently than any other animal that's been studied. Morbid Facts, Part 131. In 2009, a Russian man named Artyom Sidorkin went to the doctors suspecting something wrong with his lungs. Initially, doctors thought they were dealing with a tumor, but it ended up being something they had never seen before. It turned out that years ago, he inhaled the seed of a fir tree and it started growing inside of him. Pigs have been known to feast on just about anything. There are even stories of pigs breaking into farmhouses and eating newborn babies. The ship that inspired the story of Moby Dick was named the Essex. After being shipwrecked by a sperm whale, the crew avoided stepping foot on surrounding islands out of fear of cannibals. But because of this bypass, the men soon ran out of food and were forced to eat each other for survival. Weird History Facts, Part 5. People originally erased pencil mistakes using bread. That was until 1770 when Edward Nain accidentally picked up a piece of rubber instead of bread and found it to be very effective. This prompted him to sell rubber erasers, which were eventually developed into the ones we know today. Erasers exist to fix mistakes and were invented because of one. This is what the headquarters of Mussolini's Italian fascist party looked like in 1934. In the 1950s, atomic bomb tests were a big tourist attraction in Las Vegas. They advertised detonation times and the best viewing spots to see the bombs explode from 65 miles away. It's estimated that out of all the species that have ever lived on Earth, only a fraction of 1% have been fossilized. This means that more than 99% of the history of life will be forever unknown. Morbid Facts, Part 132. When Teddy Roosevelt was 25, his wife and his mother both died on Valentine's Day just hours apart from each other. For his diary entry that day, he drew a large black X and wrote, "The light has gone out of my life." When some whales get old, they no longer have the strength to swim for long distances. So if they swim too deep, they might not have enough strength to reach the surface for air and eventually suffocate to death. Throughout your life, you're more likely to meet a future murderer than you are to have a lasting marriage. In 2010, a homeless man named Hugo saved a woman from a knife attack in New York City. He was stabbed while trying to help, but still chased the attacker before collapsing from his wounds. Security cams captured more than 20 people walking past and staring at him, but no one offered to help. He was found dead on the sidewalk more than an hour later. Weird Nature Facts, Part 32. In the 1930s, a couple of married scientists conducted an experiment in which a chimpanzee named Gua was raised alongside their infant son Donald. For 9 months, they were raised as brother and sister as the parents recorded their development. While Gua learned many of the human behaviors before Donald, the experiment was stopped abruptly because Donald started behaving more like a chimp. If you jangle your keys at a moth that has ears, it will do a backflip. This is an adaptation to the echolocation of bats, which is a high-pitched noise. The moth will drop out of the air and pretend that it's dead to avoid being eaten by a bat. The deep-water blobfish actually looks like a normal fish when it's in its natural habitat. It only looks ugly and bloated after undergoing extreme depressurization when fishermen try to reel it in. Morbid Facts, Part 133. You should never shine a flashlight on a newborn sea turtle. If the flash is too long, the turtle will start crawling around in circles known as the Ring of Death. This means the turtle's eyesight has been permanently damaged due to mistaking your light for the moon that guides it to the sea. By doing this, you are basically sentencing the turtle to death right after its birth. The first chainsaw was invented by two Scottish doctors in the year 1780. It was originally used to help open up the pelvis during childbirth. The Gimpy Gimpy is a tree covered in tiny hairs that are comparable to hypodermic needles. And if you touch it, it will secrete a toxin that's so painful that it's driven humans and animals to suicide. It is apparently comparable to being burnt with hot acid and electrocuted at the same time. A man once used the Gimpy Gimpy as toilet paper and ended up shooting himself shortly afterwards. Morbid Facts, Part 134. Frank Sinatra died on May 14, 1998, the same night as the series finale of Seinfeld. His ambulance made it to the hospital in record time due to there being no traffic since everyone was home watching the show. About 1 in 50 people is walking around with a brain aneurysm that just hasn't ruptured yet. This means there's a chance you can instantly die from a headache without any prior symptoms. The astronauts on the Challenger most likely didn't die immediately from the explosion. They spent the last 3 minutes of their lives plummeting to Earth at 200 miles an hour. In 2015, the Department of Homeland Security conducted a test on the TSA at dozens of airports. A group of agents posing as passengers snuck various weapons through airport security. The TSA ended up failing to detect 95% of the weapons that went through the scanning system. Weird Crime Facts, Part 29. Alexander Litvinenko was a former Russian spy who solved his own murder case. He was poisoned with a cup of tea in a London hotel and was quickly hospitalized. Working with Scottish detectives as he lay dying, he managed to trace the lethal substance to a former comrade in the Russian Secret Service. Serial killer and cannibal Richard Chase only attacked victims who had their doors unlocked. He took locked doors as a sign that he wasn't welcome, but unlocked doors were an invitation to come inside. Troy Leon Gregg was a death row inmate in Georgia who escaped the night before his execution. But that same night, he ended up being killed in a bar fight. Donald Harvey was a nurse and serial killer who killed 37 of his patients with cyanide. He was only caught when one of his victims' coroners had the rare genetic ability to smell cyanide. Morbidly Wholesome, Part 11. In 1982, the Almeida family lost their pet tortoise Manuela while their house was being renovated. 30 years later, they were cleaning out the attic after their father died and miraculously found Manuela still alive. They think she was able to survive by eating termites in the furniture that their father was hoarding. Just hours after the death of Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata, a rainbow was seen over the Nintendo headquarters. Fans dubbed it the Rainbow Road to Heaven. In 2019, 30-year-old mother Emma Scholes ran through her burning home to save her 6 children. She ran from room to rescue her kids while suffering from third-degree burns over 93% of her body. For several weeks, she hovered between life and death but eventually survived. When talking about the incident, she said, "I thought I had to get the kids out, then I could die." These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Jonestown Massacre. While Jim Jones tried to convince his members that he saved them from a concentration camp, most survivors compared Jonestown to a war prison. Each day, adults had to work at least 12 hours in scorching heat and were given very little water. The grounds were also constantly patrolled by armed guards so that no one could leave. Congressman Leo Ryan is the only member of the U.S. Congress to ever be killed in the line of duty. He was assassinated while investigating the Jonestown cult and helping some members escape. About 300 of the victims were infants and children. They were either force-fed or injected with cyanide, and their screams can be clearly heard in the Jonestown death tapes. One elderly member was taking a nap while everyone else was committing the largest mass suicide in modern history. She woke up to more than 900 dead bodies scattered around her. Weird Nature Facts, Part 29. Archaeologists have discovered dwarf crocodiles living in remote caves in the African country of Gabon. After living in complete darkness, their skin has turned orange and they are nearly blind. These weird cave crocodiles may be in the process of evolving into an entirely new species. In the town of Churchill, Manitoba, it is deemed common courtesy to keep your car doors unlocked. This is so that townspeople can have a quick escape if they ever come across a wild polar bear. In 2007, a giant bowhead whale was caught off the coast of Alaska with an old harpoon point embedded in its neck. Further examination revealed that the fragment dated back to the year 1880, indicating that the whale had survived a human attack that took place over a century ago. This also proved to scientists that bowhead whales are the longest living mammals in the world. Weird War Facts, Part 25. One of the original 5 Japanese cities that the US planned on nuking was its former capital, Kyoto. The only reason it wasn't bombed was because US Secretary of War Henry Stimson spent his honeymoon there and called it a nice place. So instead of Kyoto, they chose Nagasaki. Roman Emperor Caligula once declared war on Neptune, god of the seas. His men ran at the ocean and stabbed the water for a short time before surrendering. World War II ace pilot Douglas Bader flew with no legs. This became a surprising advantage against G-force, making him less likely to pass out. A quiet American prisoner of war was nicknamed the Incredibly Stupid One by Vietnamese captors. But upon his return to the US, he provided the names of 200 other prisoners of war, which he had memorized to the tune of Old MacDonald Had a Farm. These are some morbid facts that you didn't know about the Holocaust. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was shot in West Germany in 1970, but producers had a hard time finding little people to cast as Oompa Loompas since so many of them had been killed off during the Holocaust. Many survivors were too weak to digest food even after they were rescued. As a result, about half the survivors from Auschwitz died within days of being liberated. Just one day before the Germans surrendered, Allied forces mistook SS Cap Arcona as a Nazi warship and sank it. But the ship had been carrying 7,000 men, women, and children who were concentration camp survivors. There was a famous Jewish boxer named Salomo Aruch who was imprisoned at Auschwitz. He was forced to fight fellow prisoners and the loser was sent to the gas chambers. He survived more than 200 fights over a 2-year span until the camp was liberated. Here are the weirdest war facts from parts 1 through 25. In 1973, the US Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosive charges. However, the ball never made it to the battlefield since the explosives gave it an unpredictable flight. According to the Geneva Conventions, if you play dead to kill an enemy during a war scenario, then you are committing a war crime. During World War II, it was common for soldiers to keep photos of their loved ones under transparent grips on their pistols. They were known as sweetheart grips. When Soviet forces were pushing toward Berlin during World War II, a Nazi SS soldier was forced to play piano for his captors. They made it clear to him in sign language that he would be executed the minute he stopped playing. So he played for 22 straight hours, after which he collapsed in tears. They congratulated him, then shot him. Ancient Discoveries, Part 13. Archaeologists in New Mexico have found the longest prehistoric human trail ever discovered. It's more than a mile long in an area that was full of predators during the Ice Age. The footprints belong to a young adult and a toddler, likely a mother and her child. She was in a hurry and sometimes carried the child on her back. This 9,000-year-old cave painting was discovered in Tassili Cave in Algeria. It is a depiction of a shaman during a psychedelic mushroom trip. Some things just never change. This 1,800-year-old carving of a pecker was found near Hadrian's Wall in England. In 1992, a man from Great Britain was using a metal detector to find a lost hammer on his farm. But instead, he stumbled upon one of the largest collections of ancient Roman coins in the world. The 1,500-year-old treasure consisted of nearly 15,000 coins. Weird Movie Facts, Part 7. After filming Psycho, actress Janet Leigh was so terrified of showers that she only took baths for 35 straight years. On the extremely rare occasion that she did take a shower, she made sure that every door in the house was locked and left the shower curtain open. An Indian actor named Shyam risked his life to transform for a role. He went 9 straight days without sleep so that the tissues under his eyes would swell up. Robert De Niro's character famously played Russian roulette in the movie Deer Hunter. When filming the scene, De Niro suggested using a real bullet to raise the tension of the actors. The actor who played the xenomorph alien was a 6'10" man from Nigeria. He was discovered by the casting team in a local pub, and it was the only time he appeared in a movie. Weird Nature Facts, Part 30. Scientists who first discovered the platypus thought it was fake. They assumed that an egg-laying, duck-billed venomous mammal with the tail of a beaver had to be an elaborate hoax. Standing at 380 feet tall, Hyperion is the largest known living tree in the world. Located somewhere in California, its exact location is kept a secret to protect it from vandals. A Japanese zoo once tried to mate a pair of hyenas for 4 years before realizing that they were both males. This resilient tree had all of its soil washed away but still refused to die. These are some examples of animals that are bilateral gynandromorphs. It's a genetic mutation that causes one of their first cells to be male and the other to be female. The result is an extraordinary animal that's male on one side and female on the other. Morbid facts that you didn't know about the Titanic, Part 2. The owner of Macy's died on the Titanic. He refused to board a lifeboat before women and children, and his wife refused to leave without him. They were last seen holding hands on the deck and were portrayed as the old couple in the movie who were laying down as the ship sank. The first movie about the sinking of the Titanic was released only 29 days after the tragedy. The lead actress was an actual survivor and suffered a severe mental breakdown after filming. A businessman from Uruguay survived the fire and sinking of a ship in 1871, leaving him emotionally scarred. 41 years later, he finally got over his fears and decided to sail again, only to die in the sinking of that new ship, the Titanic. The Titanic is being corroded by a unique form of bacteria that eats rusted iron. Scientists say it may only have another 12 years before it's gone forever. Morbid Facts, Part 129. In 2008, 23-year-old Rachel Hoffman was arrested for possession of marijuana and was facing 4 years in prison. Police told her that the only way to get out of the prison time was to become a confidential informant. She agreed, and her first undercover drug purchase would have been one of the biggest in Florida history. Police told her to buy 1,500 pills as well as a gun from some drug dealers. But the dealers found a wire in her purse and she was murdered with the gun that she was buying. Before World War II, Janusz Korczak ran an orphanage in Warsaw, Poland. During the Holocaust, Nazi soldiers came to his orphanage to take all 192 children to an extermination camp. Korczak was offered his freedom but refused to abandon the children. Instead, he boarded the train with them and was never seen nor heard from again. Morbid Facts, Part 130. If Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin got stuck on the moon, the official policy was to cut off communication and let them slowly suffocate in silence. President Nixon even had a speech prepared in case this happened. The speech read, quote, "Fate has ordained that the men who went to the moon to explore in peace will stay on the moon to rest in peace." Actor Bela Lugosi famously played Count Dracula in the 1931 film. As per his request, he was dressed in vampire clothing during his open casket funeral in 1956. Chad Vera was a priest who started the very first suicide hotline in 1953. He decided to start it after directing a funeral for a girl who took her own life when she had her first period. She believed she had contracted an STD and had no one to talk to reassure her.